Welcome everybody. I want to thank everyone for joining us on this webinar as we announce our partnership between BestRx Pharmacy Software and Scaled Enterprise Solutions, better known as SES. So what we're going to do here is kind of explain to you what our partnership entails. It's something we're really excited about. Independent pharmacies have a lot of challenges out there, and one of the main challenges is how to balance their workload, whether you're a busy pharmacy or a low volume pharmacy. And SES has come up with a unique solution that they've worked with on the technology side, which we think can really benefit pharmacies. To kind of explain it in more detail, I'm going to turn it over to the founder of SES, Timothy.
Thank you very much, Hemal, and thank you, Steve, and everyone else that's on this webinar. As Hemal mentioned, Scaled Enterprise Solutions, our company, also known as SES, has worked along with BestRx to create a workload balancing and telepharmacy support solution. So a lot of independent pharmacies are under intense strain in regards to providing a lot more clinical services in order to help drive higher reimbursement rates from insurance payers, as well as take advantage of some of the clinical services that insurance is reimbursing for. The unfortunate part of it is that a lot of independent pharmacy owners find that it's difficult to have the time necessary to be able to provide a lot of these clinical services. So that's where we come in at SES, and we're allowing these independent pharmacies to offload some of the work that's a lot more rudimentary and repetitive in order for them to create better patient outcomes overall. So I really want to thank BestRx and the team in putting this together, putting the webinar together, and partnering with us in order to drive independent pharmacy to the next level of where it needs to go. So this presentation's specifically tailored for BestRx clients, anybody that's looking into possibly expanding their role and taking advantage of a lot of the clinical services that they're currently leaving on the table. Our hope is that by leveraging our company, leveraging Scaled Enterprise Solutions model, a lot of independent pharmacies are going to be able to help propel their model and provide much better patient care and actually succeed in the independent pharmacy realm. So I commend Hemal and the team at BestRx in putting this integration together in order to allow this service to actually be provided to their clients. So this presentation is specifically tailored for BestRx clients, and we'll get right into it. So just a little about Scaled Enterprise Solutions. As I mentioned, we're a remote verification service provider. Our company allows higher volume pharmacies to spend more time on offering value-based services to their patients, as opposed to just solely dispensing their medications. In addition, our model also allows lower volume pharmacies to be able to verify for the pharmacies within our network and actually create an income stream that was not available before. So as opposed to a lot of the struggles that lower volume pharmacies have and justifying the cost of even maintaining ownership of a lower volume pharmacy, they have a way to be able to keep their doors open and actually generate income by providing these verification services for those other pharmacies in our network. So we'll go into what we actually provide from a service perspective, but briefly, it's basically quality checks that are required by federal, state boards of pharmacy, as well as many payers, to be done prior to dispensing a medication to a patient. So we provide these services at a much lower cost than it would be to hire actual physical pharmacists on site. And it allows pharmacy owners to actually expand to more locations and provide more clinical services to their patients. So before we get started, there's a few definitions to make sure that everybody understands what we're discussing. Data verification is simply the information that's entered into a prescription management system, specifically BestRx. So any of the information that comes from an electronic prescription, from a physical hard copy, from a refill authorization, any of the information that's being entered into BestRx needs to get verified before it's dispensed to the patient. DUR is drug utilization review, and these are reviews of potential interactions, adverse drug events that could be due to the medication being dispensed to the patient. So these must be done on every single prescription that goes out the door to the patient as well. Product verification is the actual medicine that's being dispensed to the patient and ensuring that it's the correct product going to the correct patient every single time. Remote verification kind of bridges all three of those together and does it from a remote location, not on site. So you're going to hear me say remote location and on site a lot during this presentation. What we're trying to do is trying to offload the work that is being done at the pharmacies that might not be giving you as much return on your investment of expensive pharmacist labor. So that's what we're trying to do with our entire solution. Telepharmacy is a fairly new concept that has been gaining momentum, specifically in Illinois. A few years ago, if you mentioned telepharmacy, people thought that it was from Back to the Future and nobody really knew what you were talking about. Now there's actually a lot of people that are beginning to get interested in actually deploying this type of model within their network of ownership. So telepharmacy basically is the ability to have an operating pharmacy without employing or having an actual pharmacist on site during the hours of operation. So what's required is to have a pharmacy technician basically do all the prescription intake, filling the actual medication, and selling the medications to the patients. And the pharmacist is conducting remote verification from another location that they may be at. In addition, at telepharmacy, there must also be a video link that allows consultations to be provided by a remote pharmacist as well in those models. Workload balancing is essentially other pharmacies conducting remote verification within a specified network. So this is the model that Scaled Enterprise Solutions focuses on. We also assist in telepharmacy support as well. So we'll kind of get into the nitty-gritty of how we do that. But it's basically balancing your prescription verification workload amongst several other pharmacies in order to be able to save yourself some time and conduct more time-intensive clinical services for the patients that you see day in and day out. So this is a quote that we've got from Ralph Waldo Emerson that says, "What we fear of doing most is usually what we most need to do." Independent pharmacies have been struggling over the past few years in finding ways to keep their doors open because of the constraints that a lot of larger chains and PBMs and preferred networks have been conducting. So you have to begin to think outside of the box on how to be able to drive better reimbursement to your pharmacy and ensure that the bottom line also makes a lot of sense. There are several clinical services that get harped on that you need to keep doing at your pharmacies. Unfortunately, as a pharmacy owner, you know all of these things, what you need to be doing. However, implementing them in your current workflow is very, very difficult to do. So as I mentioned, a lot of the time-intensive clinical services, such as medication therapy management, providing immunizations, doing blister packaging for your patients, all those require a lot more time than what you have to sacrifice just because of the amount of volume that your pharmacy may be doing right now. Now, what a lot of larger chains have been doing is balancing that workload. So they've actually implemented the model that Scaled Enterprise Solutions is doing for independent pharmacies within their own chain. So pharmacists within that larger chain have been balancing the workload for each other in order for them to operate at a much higher efficiency. They've been driving down their labor costs, and they've also been able to take their pharmacists and sit them outside of the pharmacy so that they're a lot more accessible to their patients and be able to provide a lot more of these time-intensive services that they may not have been able to do before. So the one question that I want to ask all of the people that are on this webinar is, do you want to stay in business? And if your answer is yes, then you got to find out a way to be able to start implementing a lot of these clinical services within your practice and leverage what Scaled Enterprise Solutions has to offer with the integration that we've built with BestRx. So going into this is one of my favorite videos from Derek Sivers, where it says how to start a movement. And telepharmacy and the Scaled Enterprise Solutions model and the integration that we've built with BestRx is a new concept, and it's difficult to understand a new concept. However, as Mr. Sivers had mentioned within this TED Talk itself, when you have the first person that starts joining a specific movement, that first adopter is the one that's the most important person, because that person all of a sudden starts validating the concept and realizing the benefit that they have by joining in on that concept. And as you see with these different images that I've got on the screen, it starts with one person and gradually the crowd keeps building and building. And the crowd keeps building and building because they see the benefit that they've been receiving by joining that specific movement. And that's what we're trying to do with Scaled Enterprise Solutions, is being able to take that one independent pharmacist that's willing to take a shot and see how this network is going to help benefit their business. And our hope is that everybody within the BestRx network begins to also follow suit, and it helps propel their independent pharmacy business to the next level and to levels that they never knew could be possible. So let's take a specific example and kind of do some role playing as far as what it looks like from a high volume pharmacy, and then we'll also go into a low volume pharmacy perspective. So when you're a high volume pharmacy, usually the typical predicament is you've got one pharmacist, a couple technicians, and you have a multitude of pharmacy patients coming into your store. In addition to the patients that are actually physically present, you've also got the phone ringing off the hook. You have dozens of other orders that you need to process and verify. And not to mention, you also have other items that you need to address, such as accounting, scheduling, inventory management, setting up deliveries. The list goes on and on. So within the high volume pharmacy model, currently, your pharmacist is verifying orders on a day in and day out basis. As I mentioned before, payers are beginning to reduce the amount of reimbursement that pharmacies are receiving simply for just dispensing their medications. So they're requiring these pharmacists to begin to provide more value-based services, such as MTMs, conducting adherence monitoring, preventable illnesses such through immunizations, etc. However, like I mentioned before as well, it's often difficult to incorporate those time-intensive tasks within your current workflow. So because you have 3-4 patients in your store and the phone's ringing off the hook and your technicians are asking you a million different questions, it's hard for you to kind of step away and be able to address everything that you need to address, in addition to conducting these clinical services. So that's where we come in with Scaled Enterprise Solutions. The SCS model allows those pharmacies to be able to offload their verification of prescriptions amongst other pharmacies within our network. So this allows that pharmacist that previously was overburdened by the amount of duties that they need to take care of, to actually step out of the box and provide more clinical services to their patients. So by providing those clinical services to their patients and monitoring their adherence, conducting MTMs, providing more immunizations, it actually results in better outcomes. You get higher reimbursement rates, and DIR fees are also decreased through that type of system. Now we're going to go into the low volume pharmacy. So this is the issue with low volume. If you have a low volume pharmacy, it's difficult to justify your cost of staying in business. You don't have the script volume, or it's a brand new store and you haven't gotten it up to speed just yet. It takes time to build up your book of business. It makes sense. I understand it. And increasing competition in preferred networks could also be driving business away. Decreased reimbursement rates also add to the pain as well. So there's a lot of facets that are making it more and more difficult to keep their doors open, specifically if you're a low volume pharmacy. However, with the SES model, you're able to sign on with our network as a remote verifying pharmacist. By doing so, you can generate income for the orders that you actually verify yourself. So it actually enables you to be able to maintain your independent pharmacy ownership and still be able to generate income while you're building your book of business. So this is the actual way that the pharmacy model works with SES specifically. So this is your traditional independent pharmacy setup, where you have, say for example, 2 different pharmacies owned by the same group of pharmacists or pharmacy owners. The new prescription would arrive at pharmacy A, and technician A would enter the data into the prescription management system, which is BestRx, and fills the prescription at that physical location. The pharmacist at pharmacy A must verify that the fill is accurate before it gets dispensed. In this model, pharmacist B is not able to verify anything that goes on in pharmacy A, unless they're physically at that location. Then the patient goes in, picks up the prescription, and the pharmacist at pharmacy A would have to consult that patient before they end up leaving the door. So the downfall to this typical setup, which is a setup that we've known for years, right? There's never been anything that kind of helps you branch out from what you currently are able to physically accommodate. So you cannot expand your ownership beyond your own staffing abilities. So your volume is shared amongst the 2 because you actually end up getting the same bottom line as being the owners for both locations. But your costs are prohibitive because your pharmacist salary is high. So you've got 2 pharmacists that you have to employ, 1 at each one of these locations at a bare minimum in order for this to survive. So when you go into the scaled enterprise solutions model, the SES model, the way that we work is that we aggregate a pool of prescriptions that are sent to us by all the different pharmacies that are within our network. So the prescriptions can arrive from any one of these pharmacies that are signed on to the SES network. The technicians will fill, taking images of throughout the process, and those images will actually end up getting sent over to the prescription pool that we've got at SES. Now the pharmacists that are contracted with us will be verifying those orders for any one of the pharmacies that are a part of our network to make sure that those fills are accurate before they end up going over to the patient. And then the patient can pick up the prescription from that specific dispensing pharmacy. So that's one of the key things with this model, is that you're still the owner of any prescription file that goes in and out of your pharmacy. You're responsible, you get the entire profit out of it, you get the patient population, all of that stuff that you currently have, you maintain full ownership of it. Where we come in is we're basically balancing that workload for your pharmacy so that you can provide more clinical services with the time that you've saved from having to check those orders yourself. So the benefit for this is that pharmacists from different ownerships can actually help balance the workload for each other. Now, there's this huge thing with maintaining your independence. However, if you can maintain your independence by still being able to leverage a network of other pharmacies, you'll put yourself in a better position to not only survive but thrive in this market of independent pharmacy, specifically because of the way that insurance reimbursements have been going. The way our model works is that the pharmacist will be paid on a per prescription verification. And this reduces your pharmacist labor costs greatly as opposed to the original model that we had seen, because now you can actually open up telepharmacies as well without having to find additional pharmacist labor. So justifying our costs, we charge on a per prescription basis. It's a flat rate every single time. It's not per hour, it's not per month, it's per prescription. So if you're a high volume pharmacy, you're going to pay the same rate as a low volume pharmacy. By doing so, you'll save yourself hours of administrative pharmacist labor on a daily basis for a fraction of the cost of hiring another pharmacist physically. And these are a few of the different reimbursement rates that we've got based off of the CMS reimbursement rates for clinical services specifically. So if you're able to justify the cost of joining our network by providing these clinical services with that time that you save, you'll be able to succeed in operating your independent pharmacy. And mind you, our costs are fairly minimal compared to the amount of immunizations you can provide, the amount of MTMs you can provide, etc. So why should your pharmacy participate in the SES network? As we mentioned, you can optimize your labor costs. You can convert your variable pharmacist hours into per prescription costs, so you know exactly how much you're paying every single time. You can expand your hours of operation. So if you're able to open up a telepharmacy, you actually have the ability to leverage our network where we have pharmacists on duty for the entire operation of when you're open. You can eliminate pharmacist overlap. So as opposed to having a pharmacist on site every single time while one goes out to lunch and the other person ends up staying to make sure that they're in compliance with state laws, you can leverage our network during that time that you're taking your lunch. And that drives your bottom line even further. And you can also reduce your costs without reducing your customer service. So a lot of times when you reduce labor, you reduce the amount of time that you can spend with your customers, which are the people that are keeping you open in the first place. Our model allows you to actually be in front of them even further. So that'll drive your loyalty and your retention even further. You can expand your clinical services. As I've said time and time again throughout this presentation, you can offer more of these immunizations, MTMs, and compounding. You know, going back a couple of slides, there's a reason why there's been such an increase in the amount of immunizations that are provided to patients in pharmacies specifically. And the largest driver for that is because chains have been operating on this workload balancing model for the past few years. So by doing so, they've been able to offer way more flu shots, zoster vaccines, varicella vaccines, pneumonia, you name it, they're able to do a lot more of those. And that helps drive better patient outcomes as well. You can increase your interactions with physicians. So, you know, the times that you wish you had more time to be able to talk to the physician and build up a relationship with them, will allow you to be able to do that. You have the time to be able to stay on the phone with them or give them a call or give some sort of outreach to them so that you can make sure that you're building up that book of business and the clients that you're receiving at your pharmacy itself. And you can shift the focus in your pharmacy workflow from solely verifying prescriptions to the patient. So this is harping on the model of a patient-focused healthcare system. This is something that's been in the industry, that's been discussed time and time again. And this is a way for independent pharmacies to finally be able to break through and be able to put that patient focus where it needs to be. We'll give you an opportunity to expand your pharmacy operations. So right now, your limitation opening just one traditional pharmacy, as we mentioned, was your staffing component. Now, if you open up multiple telepharmacies, you may not have to have a pharmacist on staff. However, you still have to have a pharmacist at the actual hub pharmacy providing those verifying orders for those. Now, the issue is that if you have multiple pharmacies that are operating as telepharmacies and you only have one or two pharmacists working at your hub location, you may be overwhelmed because you might not even have enough labor at your hub pharmacy to be able to support the orders. Nevertheless, being able to oversee the operations at other telepharmacies that you may open as well. So by leveraging the SES network, you're able to maintain proper quality assured verified orders going out to each one of your patients, regardless of how many pharmacies or telepharmacies that you open. And why should pharmacists participate in our network? You can increase your earnings. As we mentioned, if you're a new pharmacy just getting started or you're a low volume pharmacy, it's not a problem at all. By providing verifying services for other pharmacies, you can get paid on a per prescription basis. The benefit to it is that you have no limit on how much you can make off of this. So as long as you're operating out of a pharmacy that's licensed in the state that you're operating out of, you can provide orders for as many prescriptions that are within the Scaled Enterprise Solutions network. And one other reason, the final reason for participating in the SES network is increased patient satisfaction. Your customers are your lifeline. They're the blood that runs in your store. They're the reason why you have that pharmacy to begin with. That's why it's so important, and that's why it's the biggest driver in the pharmacy industry and the healthcare industry as a whole, for us to make sure that we're focusing on better health outcomes. You get to spend more time with your patients by using our network. And this, again, results in better customer retainment and loyalty because they'll see. It's a lot easier to be able to talk to you because you're not as overwhelmed with the amount of orders that you have to constantly be verifying. So our rollout schedule that we're able to provide at this point in time is to roll out our network for 5 pharmacies every 2 weeks. Our hope is that by doing it in this rate, we're able to successfully train all of the staff that you have at your pharmacies. We can allow for any modifications and questions to be addressed right then and there. And after we end up implementing and training all of the necessary hardware and software for each one of your sites, we'll still be available for you 24/7, 365. So a few other questions that I wanted to address just in case you may have seen these or you may have been thinking throughout the course of this. And I'll take any questions also at the end of the webinar just in case I didn't address any of these. But as we mentioned, if you don't have enough volume, you'll be able to actually make additional income by verifying for other pharmacies. How do I make sure my patients are poached by a competitor? So we ensure that any pharmacist that's verifying for the pharmacies within our network are at least a 5-mile radius away. And then what happens if an error occurs from any of the orders that get verified by one of our pharmacists? So we're reporting any of these errors through ISMP, which is the Institute for Safe Medication Practices. This is a nationwide form that's followed by several thousand pharmacies and healthcare providers to ensure the safe practice of dispensing medications. So those orders end up getting generated to us, or those reports get sent over to us, and we make sure that our pharmacists are held at a very high standard when they're processing these orders. In addition to that, each one of our pharmacists also hold errors and omissions insurance. So in case there is an issue that does arise, we can find a solution to that item immediately. So before I close up and wrap up, I wanted to see if there's any other questions that we may have on this webinar, so that we can address them and make sure that we get everybody up to speed and clear.
Stephen, I believe you did have a few questions come through during the webinar, correct?
Yes. So I believe you may have covered this, Tim, but who else uses this model?
So there's a company that's name starts with W and ends in green. I can't specifically say the name, but they've been operating on this model, on this type of platform, for at least the past 8 years. And if you've ever walked into one of these stores, especially one of their showcase stores, you'll actually see their pharmacist outside of the pharmacy itself, being able to provide a lot of those clinical services that we had mentioned in this presentation.
Okay. What states can this service work in?
So there's several states that this model can operate in. Any state that allows telepharmacy to work on is able to use the scaled enterprise solutions model. Now the regulation is new. It's currently being offered for legislation in several other states that I am aware of. So it's something that's going to be accepted, I feel like, moving forward in a lot more states than where we're currently at right now. But I believe last that I checked, we have at least about 20 different states in the country that allow for telepharmacy to operate.
Okay. And then finally, my pharmacy already pays so much in DIR fees, and we're getting squeezed on reimbursement rates. Why should we pay to get our medications verified now, too?
That's a good question. That's something that I've run into. A lot of pharmacies have been mentioning to me, is that, you know, we're getting nickel and dimes from everyone. So now you're requesting us to also pay for this service as well. The difference is that when you get nickel and dime from DIR fees and reimbursement rates and that stuff, you're not getting much in return other than to be able to participate in their preferred network or that insurance network. What we're offering is that we're able to give you time. So that time can be spent on doing those other clinical services that it can actually increase your reimbursement rates and decrease those DIR fees. So this is those different reimbursement rates are preventable if you're able to provide those clinical services to your patients. Our model allows you to be able to take advantage of those services.
Great, thank you. That's all the questions that have come in.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to hand it back off to Hemal, and I appreciate it, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tim. That was a great presentation, very detailed, appreciated. I hope everyone enjoyed it and found it very insightful as well. Like Tim mentioned, we've partnered with SES closely on this, and we've made several upgrades to our system to help enable this network to function properly. So if you're using BestRx and you are part of the SES network, you can be assured that things will work seamlessly when it comes to verifying these prescriptions, whether you're doing the verification or you're sending them out for verification. And we're going to continue to work closely. So as new things come up, as always do when it comes to technology, we'll keep on adding more and more features to make this an even better offering. So thank you everyone for joining this webinar. And if you have any questions, please contact us on the email that was provided on the slideshow, or call BestRx for more info. You guys have our number. If you don't, it's 630-893-9210. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.